Eli Vance never expected the galaxy to come knocking on his door. The sun had just begun to set over the peaceful colony world of Iris 9. The sky was painted in soft colors: lavender, peach, and golden orange. As Eli stood among his rows of blooming starflowers, his hands were covered in soil, and the scent of fresh earth filled the air. Life here was quiet, calm, predictable. And that was exactly how Eli liked it. Years ago, he had worked as a xenolinguist, studying alien languages and communication systems. But that life felt like it belonged to someone else now. Since retiring, he had traded crowded starships for silence and endless meetings for the simple joy of gardening. He found meaning in small things: watering plants, watching children laugh on their way to school, and writing in his old notebooks. But that evening, everything changed. A sudden low hum rippled through the air, followed by a strange light flickering. In the distance, Eli looked up from the flower bed, frowning. It wasn't the usual sound of supply drones or colony ships. This was different, larger, heavier, and unfamiliar. From the edge of the valley, a sleek black ship descended, its silver hull reflecting the last rays of the sun. It landed with grace. Just beyond the line of hills near his greenhouse, Eli froze. No one ever visited this part of the colony without reason. Moments later, the ship's hatch opened and a figure stepped out. She was tall as over 7 feet in war armor that shimmered like molten metal. Her eyes glowed with a soft gold light, and strange feather-like ridges extended from the back of her head like a crown. Though clearly not human, her presence wasn't threatening. She moved with purpose, but not aggression. Her gaze scanned the land, sharp and searching, until it settled directly on Eli, and then she spoke. "I've been looking all over the galaxy for you, human." Her voice was calm, but firm, deep, yet smooth. The words were perfect, almost musical in tone, and clearly translated from another language. Eli's breath caught. He took a step back, the spade slipping from his hand into the dirt. "Me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You must be mistaken." But the alien woman shook her head slowly, her expression unwavering. "You are Eli Vance," she said. "Scholar of languages, healer of systems, the one who changed the fate of my people without ever knowing it." Eli blinked. His heart began to race. He had no memory of meeting her species, no clue what she meant. His old work involved AI systems and forgotten tongues. Nothing important, he thought. He had written a few papers, helped decode a few artifacts. How could any of that change someone's fate? Before he could speak again, she stepped closer, removing her helmet. Her face was strong, yet elegant. Her features smooth and etched with blue markings that shimmered faintly. "I am Thera," she said, bowing her head slightly. "General of the HFY Sovereign Guard. My council sent me to find you. You are owed a debt of honor." Eli's thoughts spun in circles. A debt? A council? It sounded like something out of a fantasy story. And yet she stood before him, real, breathing, and completely certain. He looked past her to the ship, and then back at his garden. The starflowers swayed gently in the breeze, as if unaware that his quiet life had just been shattered in that moment. Eli realized something. His peaceful little world was no longer just his own. Someone, somewhere far beyond the stars, had been watching, remembering, waiting, and now they had come. Eli Vance stood silently, staring at the tall alien woman in front of him. Thera's golden eyes watched him with patience, as if she understood the storm of thoughts in his mind. The sun had now dipped below the horizon, and the first stars appeared in the deep blue sky. Fireflies flickered between the garden plants, but Eli hardly noticed them. He finally found his voice. "You say, I helped your people, but how?" "I don't understand." Thera stepped forward slowly, careful not to frighten him. Though her armor made her look like a warrior from an old legend, her voice was gentle. "Many years ago," she began, "your writings on human AI languages reached a deep part of our star network. A small crew of HFY scientists had been trapped on a malfunctioning research ship. Their systems were breaking down. The AI was failing, Communication was impossible. Eli frowned, listening closely. They found your paper, she continued. Your method of repairing language loops and dying systems, it saved the AI. It stabilized the ship just in time. Those scientists lived. One of them was my sister. Her voice softened with emotion, and Eli felt something shift inside him. This wasn't about politics or power. It was personal. I had no idea, he said, barely above a whisper. I was just sharing ideas. To you, it was a small act, Calthera said, nodding. To us, it was a miracle. She looked up at the stars now, as if remembering something far away. In our culture, she explained, when a life is saved, a sacred bond is created, a life debt. It must be honored fully. The council chose me, as general of the Sovereign Guard, to repay this debt to you. I searched many worlds, across many years. And now, I have found you. Eli felt like he was standing in a dream. The woman in front of him had traveled the galaxy because of something he had forgotten. His work he had once believed. No one truly valued had saved lives. He sat down on a low stone bench near his garden. His hands were trembling. Calthera noticed and gently sat beside him, though her armor made it awkward. Still, her presence was calm and respectful. You are not what I expected, she said softly. I thought I would find a man of great pride, a scholar who demanded recognition. But instead, you live among flowers. Eli gave a weak smile. I guess I've had enough noise in my life. I thought the stars were done with me. The stars, she replied, are never done with those who listen. They sat in silence for a moment. Only the sounds of distant insects and the hum of the ship in the air. Calthera then stood and offered her hand. There is more to this than a debt, Eli Vance. The council requests your presence. There is something coming. Something they believe only you can help with. Eli looked at her hand, unsure. I'm not the person I used to be, he said. I haven't touched real research in years. I'm not a hero. She smiled just barely, but it was real. The ones who don't think they're heroes, she said, are often the ones who become them. Eli looked once more at his quiet garden, his little house, the flowers he had grown. Then he looked at the stars. Something inside him stirred a spark that had long gone dim. He reached out and took her hand. The next morning, Eli stood at the edge of his garden, staring at the valley where Caltheris's ship rested. Dew sparkled on the petals of his starflowers, and the air smelled of wet soil and early sun. This place had been his home for so long it was hard to imagine leaving it behind, but something inside him had already changed. All night he had barely slept. His mind had been filled with memories of his younger days, of languages and symbols, of dreams about helping others. Beyond Earth, those dreams had faded with time, buried under quiet routines. But now they were waking up again. And it both scared and excited him. Calthera stood near the ship, waiting with the same patience she had shown the night before. Her armor gleamed softly in the light. She had allowed Eli time to think without pressure. That small gesture meant more to him than he could say. He took one last walk through the garden, touching the plants gently, like saying goodbye to old friends. When he reached the ship, he looked up at her. I've packed a few books, some old data files. I hope your council likes ancient Earth poetry. Calthera gave a small smile. Knowledge is welcome in all forms, even poems. The ship's ramp lowered with a smooth hum. As Eli stepped inside, he took a deep breath. The interior was nothing like human ships. It was quieter, no harsh lights, no loud machines. The walls were smooth and curved, with soft blue lights glowing from within. Everything felt alive, like the ship was listening. Calthera led him to a small room with a window that opened to the stars. This will be your space for the journey. She said, the trip will take 5 cycles. You may rest, read, or explore the ship as you wish. Eli placed his bag on the table and looked out at the sky. Where are we going? To my homeworld, she replied. Euro Preamoris is the heart of the Urukai sovereignty. The council awaits you. He nodded slowly, then turned to her. Do you trust them? Her golden eyes held a deep, thoughtful look. They are wise. But even wisdom can be afraid of change. That is why you are important. Your thinking is different. That difference may be exactly what we need. Eli didn't fully understand what that meant, but her words stayed with him. In the following days, Kelthera visited him often. She shared stories of her people, their art, their honor codes, their love for song and memory. In return, Eli told her about Earth, about rainy days, about old songs from forgotten lands, about human dreams of flying even before they had wings. Slowly, a friendship began to grow between them. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, full of respect and curiosity. Kelthera began calling him Eli the listener. She said that was a rare gift among warriors and scholars alike. One night, as the ship glided through a nebula filled with glowing clouds, Kelthera joined him at the window. "I once thought humans were fragile," she admitted. "But now I see. Your strength is not in muscle or machines. It is in your heart, in how you see the world." Eli looked at her, his voice soft. "Sometimes seeing isn't enough. Sometimes we have to act." She nodded. "And soon you will." Outside, the stars continued to dance. Eli knew that ahead of him was something far bigger than he had ever faced. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel small. He felt ready. When the ship finally reached Yera Primoris, Eli stood in silent awe. The Arakai homeworld wasn't like any place he had imagined. Giant floating cities hovered above golden oceans. Towers of glass and silver reached into the sky like fingers. Searching for stars, strange beautiful plants bloomed across the rooftops, and glowing birds flew freely through the air. Everything seemed alive, full of color, harmony, and ancient power. Kelthera stood beside him as the ship gently landed on a circular platform high above the city. "Welcome to Yera Primoris," she said softly. "Welcome to the Hall of Stars." Eli's heart beat faster. He had been told that he was to appear before the Galactic Tribunal, but he still didn't understand why. He had thought it was about repaying a debt, but now he felt something bigger was happening. As they walked through a wide corridor of glowing stone, he noticed strange statues representing different species, some tall, some with wings, some shaped like crystal. Kelthera explained that the tribunal was not just for the Yerakai. It was a council of many advanced species who worked together to protect harmony in the galaxy. Finally, the two of them entered a massive circular chamber. It was quiet, too quiet. At the center stood a glowing disk, and around it sat representatives from different alien races. Their eyes or lights or sensors turned toward Eli as he stepped forward. Kelthera spoke first. "Honored Tribunal," she said, her voice strong and proud. "This is Eli Vance of Earth. He is the one we have searched for." One of the alien voices, smooth and echoing, responded, "We know who he is. The question is, does he know why he has been summoned?" Eli cleared his throat, nervous but calm. "No, I don't," he said honestly. "I was told I helped save a Yurakai ship with something I wrote. I never meant for it to be anything more than an idea." Another voice, softer and more curious, replied, "Sometimes an idea is more powerful than a weapon." A tall, crystal-like being floated closer. "Eli Vance, we are facing a crisis. Across the galaxy, our AI systems, those we depend on to connect our worlds, are becoming unstable. Their language patterns are failing. Misunderstandings are spreading like sickness. Some worlds are falling silent. We fear something ancient is breaking apart." Eli listened closely. He felt a strange sadness. Language, once again, was at the center of something big. Kelthera looked at him with hope. "Your work, your methods of emotional context and intent-based learning, they are different from how most species think. You taught machines to listen like humans do. That is why we need your help." Eli looked around at the tribunal. Dozens of powerful, intelligent beings were depending on him, not for war or for power, but for understanding. He spoke carefully. "If you want me to try, I will. But I'm not a miracle worker. I'm just someone who believes that meaning is more than just words. It's about emotion, connection, the why behind the what." The room was silent for a moment. Then the crystal being bowed slightly. "That is exactly what we need," it said. Someone who remembers how to feel, not just speak. Eli felt the weight of the moment. He had once believed his work didn't matter, that it had been forgotten. But now, among stars and strangers, it had found its purpose. Calthera placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Are you ready, listener Verth?" He took a deep breath. "Yes," he said.
Let's fix this together.
Eli Vance never imagined he would be standing in front of alien scientists, explaining human ideas about feelings and language. But now, here he was, in the heart of Yarrow Primoris, inside a learning dome filled with light, color, and the quiet hum of thought around him sat beings from different worlds. Some had wings. Some had fur. Some spoke through light or music. They all came from distant galaxies. Yet they listened to him with deep focus. Eli didn't use big machines or complex numbers. Instead, he drew on a screen with simple shapes, told stories, and played recordings of human voices, laughing, crying, whispering. He explained how language was not just about grammar or rules, but about meaning. He showed how tone, emotion, and memory made words come alive. At first, many of the alien scholars were confused. One of them asked, "Why does sadness change the meaning of a sentence if the words stay the same?" Eli smiled, because the heart speaks in ways the mouth doesn't. Calthera watched every lesson from the side, her golden eyes calm but curious. Though she was a warrior, she seemed deeply moved by Eli's way of teaching. When others didn't understand, she helped translate not the words, but the feelings behind the words. Slowly, respect grew between them like a quiet sunrise. One day, after a long session, Eli sat alone near a quiet water garden, feeling tired. Calthera joined him, holding 2 cups of steaming blue tea. She handed him one and sat beside him. "You are doing well," she said softly. Eli looked at the water, where small glowing fish swam in slow circles. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm just telling bedtime stories to beings that don't even sleep." Gave a small laugh. "But your stories are making them see in a new way. That is not small." He glanced at her, thankful for the encouragement. "You're not what I expected from a general." She tilted her head. "And you are not what I expected from a human." He sat in silence for a while, just enjoying the stillness. Then Calthera spoke again, her voice softer. "You've changed me too, Eli. I was trained to solve problems with strength, but you remind me that some things need understanding, not power." Eli felt warmth spread through his chest. It was rare to be understood so clearly. In the days that followed, a group of scholars began to build something new, a system called Orabase, based on Eli's ideas. It wasn't just code or logic. It taught machines how to read context, to listen for emotions, and to ask why before responding. It was like giving the machines ears, not just processors. When the first test ran between 2 distant planets, the results were amazing. Misunderstood messages became clear. Old systems, once filled with errors, now worked smoothly. Even alien translators began to sound more human. News of the success spread quickly. The tribunal praised the work. Delegates from many worlds asked for copies of the Orabase. But more than that, they wanted to learn from a human. Eli didn't feel like a hero. He still missed his garden, the quiet mornings, and the scent of soil after rain. But here, in this place of stars and ideas, he had found a new kind of peace, a purpose. One evening, Calthea found him again by the garden pond. This time, she didn't say much. She simply stood beside him, the sky above full of twin moons. After a moment, she said, "You have planted something here, Eli. Not with your hands, but with your words." He looked at her and smiled. "Sometimes," he said, "those are the seeds that grow the tallest." The great hall of the Galactic Tribunal was filled with quiet excitement. For the first time in many years, hope was in the air. Delegates from dozens of planets gathered to witness the final demonstration of Orabase, the system born from Eli Vance's ideas. The glowing center screen showed messages flowing between planets, that once could barely communicate. Now, they understood each other, not just the words, but the meaning behind them. Eli stood to the side, watching the results with quiet pride. He hadn't done it alone. Dozens of scientists, engineers, and translators had worked together, and Kyalthera had been with him every step of the way. He still remembered his first days on Europrimaris, nervous, unsure, and feeling too small for the task. Now he felt something very different. Not pride in himself, but joy in how so many species had come together. A soft tone rang out, and the lead representative of the tribunal, a being of light named Sorellin, rose from the circle. Today Sorellin began. We witnessed the rebirth of understanding. Through the work of many hands, led by the heart of one human, we have restored the voice of the galaxy. There was a gentle round of applause, from clapping wings to pulsing colors. Eli felt his cheeks warm. Sorellin turned toward him. Eli Vance of Earth, you have reminded us that strength is not always in power, but in compassion, not in control, but in connection. Your species, though young among the stars, has given us a rare gift, the ability to feel meaning. Again, Eli stepped forward, his voice calm and honest. I didn't do this alone. I just shared what I knew. In truth, I learned more from all of you than I could ever teach. He glanced at Kyalthera, who nodded slightly, her golden eyes shining. Later, after the ceremony, a small gathering was held in the Hall of Reflections, a quiet space filled with glowing water and soft music. Eli stood beside Kyalthera, watching the gentle waves ripple across the floor. You've changed things, she said, her voice thoughtful. No, Eli replied. We changed things together. She turned to him, her expression softer than he had ever seen. You taught us something we didn't even know we had forgotten. What's that? Kyalthera looked up at the star-filled ceiling. That meaning lives in the heart. That sometimes the most powerful message isn't spoken but felt. Eli didn't know how to respond, but he didn't need to. In that moment, there was no need for words. Over the next few days, messages poured in from across the stars. Planets once silent now spoke with joy. Former enemies began to talk again. Lost colonies were found and welcomed home. Ora Base became more than a tulip, became a bridge, and everywhere people spoke the same name: humanity. Not as a species of war or technology, but as the ones who listen, the ones who feel, the ones who understand. Eli began to receive visitors, young Uruk-hai scholars, curious children from distant worlds, and translators eager to learn his methods. He was no longer just a quiet gardener from Iris 9. He was a teacher of the stars. But through it all, he remained humble. Still wore simple clothes, still liked quiet places. And every evening, he would sit beside Kyalthera near the water garden, sharing stories, old earth songs, and gentle silences. One night, Kyalthera asked him, "Will you ever go back?" Eli looked up at the moons. Maybe one day.
But
For now, this feels like home. She smiled. Then stay. Why? Again, whether to help, whenever. And more hearts like yours? Above them, the stars shimmered like tiny thoughts floating across the sky, each one carrying a message, and this time the galaxy was ready to listen. Months had passed since Ora Base was shared with the galaxy. The stars, once divided by silence and confusion, were now speaking with new light and harmony. Peace treaties were signed. Lost cultures began to reconnect. Old enemies began to sit across tables, not battlefields, and through it all, the name Eli Vance remained quietly respected, not as a hero of war, but as the man who taught the stars how to listen again. Eli now lived in a quiet corner of Yarrow Primoris, near the edge of the water gardens. His home was simple, filled with books, soft lights, and a small indoor garden where earth flowers bloomed under Yarakai sunlight. He tended them gently, just like he had on Iris 9, but this time he wasn't alone. Kelthera visited often, sometimes in full ceremonial dress, sometimes without armor, just herself. They shared tea, laughter, and long walks under twin moons. Their bond had grown deeper than either of them had planned. It wasn't loud or rushed. It was honest, steady, and full of quiet respect. One evening, as they watched a soft rain fall over the glowing gardens, a message arrived from Earth. It was from the Human Council of Exploration. They had heard of Eli's role in creating Orabase. Now, they wanted him to return home to share his experience, to help train a new generation of linguists and diplomats. They even offered him a high position, with honor and resources. Eli read the message twice. Then he looked out at the rain and stayed silent for a long time. Kelthera finally asked, "Will you go?" Eli smiled gently. "I think I need to. For a little while, there are students back home who still see aliens as mysteries or threats. Maybe if they hear this story, they'll understand what I've come to know." Kelthera nodded slowly. "Then go. But know this Yura will always welcome you back. And so will I." The next day, Eli prepared for the journey. Kelthera walked with him to the same landing platform where they had first arrived together. The wind was cool and the sky cleared. Before boarding, Eli turned to her. "When you first came to find me, I thought I was just an old man in a garden." "You were," she said with a soft smile. "But you were also the key to saving more than we ever expected." He took her hand gently. "You showed me the stars again, Kelthera? And you reminded me that one voice, even a small one, can still echo across the galaxy." As the ship rose into the sky, Eli looked out the window, watching her figure grow. Smaller, but his heart felt full, not empty. He was not leaving home behind. He was simply carrying it with him. When Eli returned to Earth, he didn't speak like a leader, didn't act like a legend. He told stories of glowing cities and crystal songs, a friendship across cultures, of a warrior woman who carried honor like a shield and kindness like a star, and as more humans listened, their minds opened. Hearts softened, curiosity replaced fear. In time, Orabase became part of Earth's communication system. Human ships used it to speak to new worlds. Children learned it in schools. And Eli's name became part of history, not for battles won, but for bridges built. Years later, when Eli finally returned to Iris 9, he walked back into his old garden. The flowers still bloomed, the wind still sang through the trees. But this time he didn't feel alone, because now carried the voices of the stars in his heart and a promise that wherever humans went, they would no longer be silent strangers. They would be known as the ones who listen, and somewhere far above. A ship moved through the stars its path, guided by a language that no longer needed translation, only understanding.